Hello, my beautiful cuddlebugs. Welcome to Ramblings of a Book Dragon, where we dive into the warmth of good books and unravel stories that feel like a literary hug. I'm Allie, your host, and I'm thrilled to embark on another cozy adventure with you. So grab a cup of your favorite beverage, snuggle into your cozy reading nook, and let's begin. But before we do, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so that you won't miss a single episode. I really value your feedback and recommendations. Now let's begin. Today is a bit of a where the heck have I been type of episode where none of the books that I've really been reading recently have actually been particularly exactly what I've been feeling like are ones I've been actually wanting to review, and then also just DNFing a lot of books. I think The Raven Scholar kind of took a lot more out of me than I kind of realized, because I just fell into a reading slump. Like, it just was really hard to get into the right kind of books where, I want to get into the fall cozy weather. I want to get into fall, but the weather isn't allowing me to. So I'm trying to find books that do that and trying to find cozy vibes. And it's just, I read books that were nice and sweet, but then I wasn't really feeling the urge to want to talk about them. So, I mean, there is one that I definitely do want to talk about for sure, and I'm going to do a little brief overview of each of the books that I've read. But the one that I mainly want to talk about is called The Stolen Apocalypse by Jacqueline Benson. It's basically just a little novella because I decided in my infinite wisdom at the beginning of the year that I was going to read about 54 books, because I read 53, 52 books, something like that last year. And one of the Kindle challenges was to read two more books or something like that. I think that's how I came to this 54 books decision. And I got a little bit behind last month, where I was 3 or 4 books behind. And I was like, okay, I need to read some quick, light books, but I don't really gravitate towards novellas. So what do I have that I already own that is quick, light, and easy? And that's also how I got into some of the other books that I had read recently too, where I re-caught up on some of my Fruits Basket manga, because I have a couple of, they put together the mangas into this, I don't remember what it's called, but it's instead of needing to buy 3 mangas, it's 1. So I have that, and I just finished volume 4, and that was what I read right after The Raven Scholar. But then The Stolen Apocalypse was the next one after that, which is Raiders of the Arcana series, and it's basically kind of like a mid novella where it's before Ellie goes on her first adventure. And I thought it was really fun and cute because they were going to a wedding. Of course, it was Ellie and her bestie and Connie, they were going to this wedding. And there was this book where they're like, oh, this manuscript it's about this apocalypse. She figures out through this young lord, oh, this is actually a fake manuscript, and they figure out that it's actually was swapped out. So we got to get more sass and banter between Ellie and Connie. They were having to figure out all this stuff with these ancient church, and it was just really funny because it was also talking a lot about during the War of the Roses, and it's oh, some of my podcasts are talking about War of the Roses. It was just really fun that it's okay, we're back in England, so these are things that I am a tiny bit more familiar with. But it was just a really nice little light book that you didn't have to read the other books to understand what was going on. I mean, it's a good thing to do, but you don't have to read this one first. But it's more funny because Ellie does not believe in marriage. We know this from the other books, and she's really vehemently against marriage in this novella. And Connie's like, oh, I can't wait to meet the man that changes your mind. Connie, she's wanting to practice her skills with lockpicking. And Ellie, she's just wanting to find this manuscript because she knows that it exists. And so they find it. And it's just like, okay, this was a mess. And we meet her grandmother. She's still owing her grandmother more and more and more debts because she's getting her out of trouble with her mother. And it's just so fun. And it was a nice little brain teaser for the third book that's coming out in November. And I need to reread the first two books in preparation for the third. Not that I need to, but it just would be nice to be able to get back into that, to get back into the world of Adam and Ellie and their sass and their banter and all their pizzazz. And the other one is like, because now that we're getting finally into fall, it's Great British Bake Off. So I've been watching that and I was like, okay, I remember last year I read that book, The Golden Spoon. So I went to Google and was like, okay, are there any other Great British Bake Off-esque books that are crime books? So it recommended the Crime Brulee Bake Off. So like, okay, this sounds like this might be interesting. The only thing I didn't like is, and maybe this is because I hadn't read the other books by Jacqueline Benson yet, but there was this young lord that knew that it was a forged manuscript. And it said in the back of the book that this guy becomes this main character in this other series. So maybe it would make more sense as to why he knew this from the other book, from the other series. So maybe I need to read the other series to understand that. But it was like interesting that it was a meeting of the minds in that way. But in Crime Brulee Bake Off, it's the Great British Baking Show meets a cozy mystery with a contemporary romance and Regency era twist, which I thought would be cute. I thought it would be entertaining. I thought it would be interesting. And the romance was interesting and I liked the murder mystery element. My complaints, because this one came really, really, really close to getting its own episode because there were some things that just bugged the crap out of me, mainly because it was a little too insta-love for my liking because I didn't feel the tension. I didn't feel the chemistry because we have the Lord of the Manor and he didn't really want to have anyone at the house. But then the hosts of this baking show convince him to allow them to use their kitchens because they make it where instead of just doing baking stuff like the Great British Baking Show, they decide to make it a little more unique where like you cook in outer space. So they do something. I was still confused by that element. Like, how do you cook in outer space? Like, how do you make that a thing? I don't know. But then with this one, it was like 18th century cooking. So they had to use 18th century ingredients. They had to use 18th century stuff. But they didn't know this until they got to the show. So it was like, okay, so these are supposed to be home cooks. And I understand that this author was trying to make her own twist, her own unique twist. But I like, it didn't quite fit me because she wanted to become part of the Britain's Battle of the Bakers, and they had to use historical equipment to bring pre-1900s recipes to life, and so they were able to practice this all at home, obviously, because they have to do something. But then it just was like, this is just weird. They're expecting these home bakers to be able to even do this at this Lord's manor. Like, I don't know how that works, especially in England, but shouldn't those older stuff be insured? Like, do they keep that stuff under wrap, under lock and skeleton key? Like, how do they make sure that stuff is kept intact and not messed up by these home bakers who are just learning how to do this basically just for this show? So how do they know that they actually know? I mean, obviously, like these are I don't know. And then the other thing that was weird about this is the fact that the inspector even admits, like, no one wants to investigate this because they thought it was self-harm. So they didn't want to investigate this. His bosses didn't want him to investigate this. So the investigator's like, I'm going to investigate this on his own. And then he decides that he wants them to help him investigate because no one else wants to. And I did kind of like how they did this, because I did appreciate the fact that they actually did have these types of conversations where she says, we are not investigators, like, what the heck? But at the same time, it seemed like it was a little too easy. Like, at least in like Miss Fisher's murder mysteries, she had to really force her way in to be able to help the detective inspector. Like, this was also in the 1920s in Australia, of course, and there were all the issues with her being a woman and everything, but she basically had to force her way in. But the inspector was practically begging them for help. Like, it just seemed like he was kind of just doing this for the plot. Like, it didn't seem like he really felt like there was something really amiss. He just didn't seem to really agree with his superiors, but there was never, as far as I remember, because it's been a while since I read the book, I don't really think he really had any sort of real idea of why he felt like he should be doing this. But then also the whole thing with the romance, I did like that there was a romantic element, because that was different. But it also was very much we are forcing a romance into a murder mystery. It was that type of situation where, like I said before, it was a bit insta love, and he was like, I don't like to feel love. But and then also the twist at the end of who did it, I felt like we could have had a little bit more of a running up hint of who it was. Like, it seemed like at least one of the hints made more sense in terms of one of the twists, but the big twist of who did it, I didn't like. Maybe I'm just not a very good investigator. I don't know. Like, so, I mean, I read more books than what I thought I did for a period of time. But then the next one was Tell Her Small Fortunes by Julie Leong, which I did really like because it was just a really sweet, cozy, soft adventure. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And it's a wandering fortune teller finds an unexpected family in this warm and wonderful debut novel, and is perfect for readers of Travis Baltree and Sangu Mandana. And I love Sangu Mandana's work. But with Tell Her Small Fortunes, I really like this one because it was exploring magic, and it was exploring how magic can be used, and with forcing people to use their magic whether they want to or not. And then also with her being a foreigner, because she's from a foreign country, and this foreign country, they were at peace, but apparently there were some tensions that were going on there, and now they may potentially be at war. And she's able to tell these fortunes by looking at people's palms. She's able to tell what's going on. And she doesn't really want to attract any more attention because she saw her father's future, and she told him, and she was worried that she created his death because he died when she was little, and she blamed herself for that. And her mother didn't really protect her. And I mean, she was doing what she could, and we learn later on that she was protecting her. It's just that our main character didn't really see what was going on at the time because there was no conversation. And overall, I really liked it because she at first was just wanting to be a loner. She was wanting to stay alone. And then she gradually starts to collect a family because she sees that this man is looking for his daughter, and there's another man beside him who's helping him, and they decide to travel together. And then they pick up a young woman who is a pastry chef, and they all travel together, and then there's some adventures along the way, and she tells them why she's only a teller of small fortunes, what is going on, what is she running from. And it takes her a while to open up when she was also getting them to open up, but she wasn't really trying to get them to open up, which I thought it was just a really nice, cozy, cute book. But it wasn't really, I don't know, it just, like I'm talking about right now, like it was just a nice light read for a nice light week where you just need something cozy to listen to, where you're not really needing to think about it, you're not really needing to pay that much attention to it. It's just like, okay, this is nice. This is just a nice book. I would read it again. And then I also read She Doesn't Have a Clue by Ginny Elder, and it was just it was interesting. I didn't I liked it, but I felt like some of it was a little over the top because it is a murder mystery, and we do have a bit of we do have a romance as well. But it's also a second chance at love because Ginny Elder Moak's half mystery, half romance adult debut set at a lavish destination wedding, a high-end wedding on a private island off the coast of Seattle, sounds like something out of a magazine. But for best-selling mystery author Kate Valentine is more like a nightmare. And it's because her ex is getting married to this young woman, and it's just a whole hot mess. And of course, they have to share a room because he accidentally was signed up as her +1, and this other guy, and he was the guy that got away. And it's clear with She Doesn't Have a Clue fits more than one thing because he's this this Australian daredevil, and she helped him write his book. It was just a very fun book because he's helping her solve the mystery even though he doesn't really want to. And it's just kind of trying to figure out who's attacked, like what is really going on here, who's really being attacked, because at first it seems like it's the bride, and then it's potentially the woman who's the bride's aunt is potentially having some issues going on there, and it's just a very wealthy group of people. And then of course it's Kate who is the one who's actually being yelled at by everyone because she's the ex. And it just was like, okay, people, I got really annoyed with the bridesmaids and I got really annoyed with Kate too, because it was just like, Kate, stand up for yourself, please. Like, just yell. Like, I see what was going on. And then also it was just the fact that she has this character from this book series, and she always is thinking in terms of what that character would do, and that character just sounds so insufferable, like even just from the book. And it's like, okay, how is she a bestseller from this character? Because that character just sounds like she just sounds insufferable to me. But that's just me. I much prefer Kate Valentine myself because she is a little kooky, she's a little crazy, and then of course she doesn't realize that our guy has a guy likes her, Jake Hawkins, the guy who got away, the Australian, Kate's biggest romantic regret, and we have all the lovely wine. And it's also trying to figure out, like, just what is going on with this group of rich idiots. truly. And I just found it to be overall a very interesting, and it was just a light classic whodunit. And I would definitely read it again, and I would definitely read the second book as well that's coming out. And it's about her, one of the other ladies that works at the book publishing firm is going to wind up with our Australian's hot doctor. So I was like, what could possibly go wrong there? But I thought that, like, it was just, but I didn't like the fact that I didn't like the twist. again, like that's what's been going on with these books. That's what's been going on with these murder mysteries, is finding out the twist. And then like with this one especially, it was like all these red herrings of, okay, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And then just with her not standing up for herself, and she's being accused of trying to murder the bride. And it's all because her ex is an idiot and the bride is just this sweet person. And then they're learning all these secrets about what's going on with the bride. And then she's getting lost in basically trying to out detective reality by getting stuck in, okay, this is a good plot for a book. And she's just realizing, oh, wait a minute, this is actually like, the reality is stranger than fiction, or at least the book's reality is stranger than fiction. But it took a lot longer than I was expecting it to, also for her and Jake to finally have their conversations. And then just the fact that there were some miscommunications that really irked me as well. Like, why? Why did we have to go that route? But I know that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's the way we must do some of these things, because we must have our dramatic moments. We must have our dramatic I love yous. I know. But it would have been nice to have a little bit less miscommunication. But overall, it was a good book. So I feel like for the past month, while we're finally in fall, has been not too bad. And I hope I didn't bore you by talking very vaguely about some books, very in depth about other books. Now that we're finally in October and we're finally starting to cool down, I can talk to you about October's books. And I think I'm going to do a little light, because especially since I'm in the Between Reading Challenge, I'm not going to do another Between book review, since I did a deep dive last year, which you can listen to on the podcast. I did weekly recaps, but I thought it would be fun to at least do a quick overview of what the Between Reading Challenge is, and also go over what I am doing this year to be extra crazy. Not that I ever need to be extra crazy, but I'm doing it. So the Between Reading Challenge is Between is a cozy modern romantasy by L.L. Starling, and it is a challenge for either 1 month or 2 weeks, depending on which challenge you decide to do. Someone in the group that I'm in, it's on Facebook, it's Between Group. You read like maybe 1, sometimes 2 chapters a day, or listen to them if you're listening to it on audiobook. And it's just a nice, fun way of being able to experience the book again, or experience it for the first time with a group of like-minded individuals who have just enjoyed the book. And there's 2 ways that you can listen or read this book. There's the normal classic way, which is just beginning to end, straight through. That's the normal smart way. And then there is the chronological way, which is the crazy way. And because Between is set over the course of 2 weeks, you get to, and Between is set between 2 POVs. The first POV is Sasha for the first half of the book, and then the second half of the book is Lauren's, and they're both over the course of those same 2 weeks. You get to, for the chronological, you get to flip back and forth between the 2 sets. And I decided to go the extra crazy route by listening to the book and also occasionally reading the book on my Kindle, the Kindle app on my phone at the same time, because I knew there were random occasional bits, mind you, that I failed to highlight over the previous million times that I've read this book, because it is top tier, one of my absolute favorites, definitely top 5. For sure, because it's just so fun and cute, and you remember so many wonderful things, and I just love all the little one-liners. That is what I absolutely love about this book, Between, is the sheer number of one-liners and all the little world-building bits. Like, it's just full of bits that you just get. Like, it's not even, like, it's a very slow-paced book, But that's so nice, is that you can just snuggle in and just experience that world for 30 days or less if you decide to read more chapters. It's just so nice. But that is what I'm doing, and so far it hasn't been too bad because it's either been Sasha's sections or Lauren's sections, but I was looking ahead, and coming up this coming week, it's going to be, there's a couple of days where it's one day of Sasha, one day of Lauren, like one chapter of Sasha, one chapter of Lauren, for one day. So it's going to be like an immediate flip. But that's okay because I think that's going to be even more entertaining to immediately flip flop. So I'm very much excited, and I think this is going to be very fun. I don't know if I'm going to do this again next year for the next challenge. I might just stick with the normal singing route of just listening to it like a normal person, like a regular person, But I think that this was a lot of fun. And then also one of the other books that I'm reading, because I don't want to just read one book because that would be utterly crazy. I'm listening to Salvacion. Is that, I don't speak Spanish and I do not remember how the pronunciation was, but it's by Sandra Proudman. And it's basically like a feminist version of The Mask of Zorro. It's a Latinx young adult fantasy inspired by Zorro. And Lola de la Pena becomes the masked heroine Salvacion in order to save her family in town from a man who would destroy it for the magic it contains if she doesn't fall in love with the boy in his company first. And that just, as a child of the 90s who saw The Mask of Zorro when she was far too young, far too young, because The Mask of Zorro came out in like 98. So I was like 7 when it came out. And I don't know how old I was when I first saw it, but I know I was definitely too young. And I do vaguely remember, I remember. And so just having this feminist modern retelling, this Latinx telling of it with a female Zorro is just like, this is gonna be fun because it just makes me happy. And that kind of brings me to, like, I was looking online at Mask of Zorro reviews, and it's like, how dare they give The Mask of Zorro, what was it? Yes, but it came out in 98. They gave The Mask of Zorro on IMDb a 6.8 out of 10, but, like, excuse you, but on Rotten Tomatoes, at least they saved themselves with an 86%, and then on Letterboxd, it was a 3.4 out of 5. It was like, oh, thank God. We do have sane people in this world, because it's not a deep movie, and yes, there are things looking back on the movie as an adult and thinking about it and realizing, okay, Diego de la Vega was definitely he had to be extremely confident to pull off being an aristocrat, going from, he started at the bottom and now he's here. Isn't that the saying? Or like, he started basically as a peasant and then he was able to fake his way into pretending to be a very wealthy man. And yes, that was because of Diego de la Vega, but also but that's part of what I was struggling with a little bit, was how long did it take for him to learn that? Like, he must have, like, so I can see why some of those points were knocked off a little bit because of that timing of just, because he was so smooth and so confident and so poised, and he was able to dance so amazingly, and he was able to fight so amazingly, because we saw how he was in those first fight scenes. He stunk. He was extremely confident, but he stunk. And so going from that to Zorro, with those fight scenes that are just like, it still makes me happy to this day. Like, I know they're not. It would probably hurt a little to watch like a real sword fighting expert do a deep dive breakdown of saying like this sucked, this sucked, this sucked. But like also, who cares? It's a fun movie. It's fun. Whatever. I don't care. I'm just here to have fun. I'm here to watch two hot people have fun and sass each other and be silly and be sassy. That's all. That's all I'm here for. But anyway, we're just having too much fun tonight. So that is where I am at between reading Between and Salvacion and getting ready to reread The Empire of Shadows. I think I'm going to be busy for a little bit. If you want me to do a recap of Empire of Shadows, I can definitely do that. If there are any books that you would like for me to review, or any movies that you would like for me to review, or TV shows, please let me know. I know there's so many that are coming out these days, but I am happy to review anything that you'd be interested in. I hope you take care, my beautiful cuddlebugs. That is it for right now, and I will catch you next time. Goodbye.